Good morning. Happy Tuesday morning.
Hey,
from
everybody.
Both of us here on the set of Chicago Now. Nat, we just have one more day of hot weather to get through.
I know.
Until it cools off,
Thank
at least
goodness.
for almost a week. I'm ready for a little.
Me too. My daughter wanted to go outside and play yesterday, and I'm like, I can't do it. I just opened the door to get the mail. I'm like,
I got the daddy, can we go play in the sandbox? I said, not going outside again. Can we play Magnetiles? And the answer was yes. So I got an alternative plan. Welcome to Chicago Now, everybody. Thank you for joining us here. And we have a jam-packed show. Obviously, a lot of Chicagoans are pretty sad this morning about the loss of Ryne Sandberg. We're going to be looking back on his life and legacy. Huge part of our childhood here, if you're born of a certain age. And we're going to be sharing some really cool memories and stories about Rhino as well.
Just such a great person. And I want to add too, you know, not really paying attention to the stats of baseball and growing up in a Cardinal household. I'm sorry, I grew up downstate. You know, not following the Cubs during that time, but just being here in Chicago for 12 years and seeing what a great person he is.
Yes.
You know, whenever he came out to, you know, the salute to Harry Carey every year, and I mean, just such a nice person. You know, through and through, and that's what everybody says.
Through and through, and people are just flocking to Wrigley Field today to visit his statue, pay their respects. They've got a nice memorial on the marquee this morning. They've, of course, got his jersey, the Ryne Sandberg flag flying proudly over Wrigley Field. So we're going to be talking with a member of our digital sports team in just a moment about Rhino. We're also talking about Ayurveda. This is a thing that is having a moment on TikTok, okay?
Yeah.
It is an ancient healing system. It's got its roots in India. And it's having this moment on TikTok. So we're going to be speaking with an expert I had not heard of it.
I had not heard of it either, and I thought I'd heard of it all, like staying on top of all the beauty trends, Anthony. But this is like a self-care, and it's like a whole body,
mind,
body, soul kind of situation.
I'm into all this stuff.
Well, yes.
I'm into all this stuff.
The dream analysis.
Yes, dream analysis, big into that. Also, a little bit later, we'll go real world a little bit later as well. From dating dilemmas to career choices, women today are expected to do it all. And we have What's that?
I said preach.
Preach. Natalie,
Go on, Anthony. Tell me all about it.
I should be the one. Yeah, there's a reason you should be reading that paragraph.
I should be reading that. But anyway, we're going to talk to like a woman who has a ton of social media followers. She's a podcaster, specifically about drilling down on how to find a partner. This is very important to people who are in the generation after us, not millennials, but Gen Zers. About politics and dating, and how do you approach the topic?
Can we do marriage and politics?
Well, apparently it matters a lot to the Gen Z population.
Oh, for sure, yeah. So we're going to be speaking with the host of Rich Little Broke Girls podcast for her advice on navigating. That could be tricky with how divisive it is being in the dating world these days. Yes, so how to navigate that. But again, first we are turning our attention toward the Chicago Cubs. Our hearts are with the whole Cubs organization today, really. It's a tough day for them. I mean, we're focusing on all the positive things that Ryne Sandberg did as we bring in Chris Kwasinski to look back on his life and legacy. Chris, thanks for joining the program. We appreciate it, sir.
I always appreciate coming out with you guys.
Yeah, we always love having you on. First of all, before we get your own reflections on Ryne Sandberg and the impact he had not only on the game but on the Cubs organization, how is the sports world reacting this morning to this loss?
I mean, it's massive. I think we're starting to see tributes pour in from everywhere. It's kind of reminiscent of this past offseason when Bob Uecker passed away with the Milwaukee Brewers up north, where there's a lot of people that were touched by the impact and the significance that this specific person had in terms of baseball. And Rhino was no different. And you start to see the legacy kind of carry over, not just with the statue that's already there at Wrigley Field, but like you start talking about the fact that when you say the Chicago Cubs, you start thinking of Ernie Banks, you start thinking of Ryne Sandberg, you start thinking of Anthony Rizzo, Sammy Sosa. These are the names that you think of when you think of the iconic pinstripes, the ivy on the wall. There is no, Chicago Cub franchise without Ryne Sandberg.
Mm-hmm. He was drafted out of high school, which just shocked the heck out of me. And how much he grew with the Cubs organization. I wouldn't necessarily say a throwaway player at the beginning, kind of like that guy. We'll take the star and that guy, and he was that guy. And then the Cubs got a new coach and really worked with him to use his size to his advantage.
Yeah, I think when you think about the game of baseball and how interesting it is in this specific instance, you draft high school players and you don't know what you're going to get a lot of the times. And it's all about the situation. It's all about the staff. It's all about the player and how they click and they gel. I mean, there's a lot of success stories and there's a lot of the opposite of that. But in terms of Ryne Sandberg, he needed Chicago just to come here and have the opportunity to challenge himself and to put himself in a position where he felt like he could succeed at the highest level. And you go back and you read some of the stories. Jesse Rogers at ESPN had a fantastic story about this, where he talked about as soon as he got to Chicago, they challenged him to work on his long ball. And week in, week out, he's out there hitting the ball. They said, we need you to hit it to the tarp. And that's what he did. That's how he worked on his hit. But when you think about specifically the impact that he had in Chicago, we're talking about a guy that was the MVP at age 24. Mm-hmm. Like that's impeccable. I mean, we're talking about a guy that young was only been replicated, I would say, when you go back to Chris Bryant, who did it when he was 24, and that was more than 40 years later. I mean, we're talking about a guy that transcended a lot of what the impact of what the Chicago Cubs are and what they have and what will be.
How do you feel like he's going to be remembered most as a player? Is it his well-roundedness? I mean, Mike Kaplan was just singing his praises as a five-tool baseball player. Didn't seem like he had many weaknesses on the field.
No, at all. And I think the biggest part about that is he was a 7-time Silver Slugger, like a 9-time Gold Glove player. Like that's about as even rounded as you could
Yeah.
possibly be. One of the best hitters and one of the best fielders out in the game, and that's incredible. And not to mention, you look at the year he won MVP, led the entire league in triples with 19, and then just a handful of years later, he's leading the major league, or excuse me, he's leading the National League with 40 home runs. Like that's about as well rounded as you can possibly be as a guy that's hitting for average, but also can hit for power later in his career.
I know he stole a lot of bases as well. Can you think of, I mean, I don't want to put you on the spot too much, Chris, but like, would you compare, are there any players in today's game that you'd compare him to? I mean, I know a lot of players have their niches, you know, Ohtani being like the exception where he can pitch and hit, but a lot of people are like, okay, well, you know, Anthony Rizzo's a power, or you know, a power hitter, but he's just at first base, or, you know, if someone's a power hitter, but they're just in the outfield. Any players in today's game come to mind with regard to the well-roundedness that we're talking about here? Stolen bases, home run hitting, hitting triples, like lockdown defender.
Such a great question. And I don't think that we have that right now, only because you've seen a guy that not only, like you mentioned, was so well-rounded on both sides of the game, but also he changed his game a little bit more. You saw he was hitting for average early on in his Cubs career, and then he was hitting for power later. The kind of career change up to adjust to maybe the differences and the changing and aging in his career, like that's impeccable. That's an understanding of not only just a professional IQ, but also a baseball IQ that a lot of players don't have the longevity or don't get the longevity to have. Because I mean, having the career that he had, like most, I mean, you think about most baseball players can only last 4 to 5 seasons maybe before, if you don't pan out, then maybe you're sent back to the minors and you just don't get another shot. But it's in this specific instance, he was able to adjust his career to what it needed to be. And I mean, that was just a legendary Cub, and we're going to remember that.
And without arrogance and with kindness always. You know, Lou Canellis, you were speaking with him earlier this morning, and he mentioned that 3 grown men went to a game, 3 friends of Lou's, and they saw Ryne and they were like, hey, can we get a photo with you? And he's like, you know, I got to get back to my seat. And then he circled, like kind of thought about it and circled back and like, no, I always have time for my fans, you know. And I wanted to read, I was telling Anthony, you know, really worldwide, he was just larger than life. And I was reading a New York Times article because I thought, you know, you read the comments on a Chicago Tribune article about Ryne, you're going to get, you know, you're going to get Chicago people weighing in, but there were people from all over the country weighing in here. This guy is saying, you were a great second baseman, even if you did play for the Cubs. Love, a Giants fan. This one coming in from Massachusetts saying, my son 30 years ago picked Ryne Sandberg as his American hero for a school project after reading a book about him. And we just talked and remember painting the Cubs uniform on one of my old white V-neck t-shirts. So he's kind of reminiscing about being a fan as well. And then here's another one out of New Jersey saying, as a Mets fan, I hated the Cubs in those days, but there always seemed to be universal, if not begrudging, respect for Sandberg.
Absolutely. I mean, as you're reading those, Natalie, Chris could probably chime in here too, but I don't feel like I've heard a negative word
Not
said
a single
about
one.
Ryne
all
Sandberg.
Of the
it's like,
yes.
You know, there was a bunch of people. It's funny when you notice themes, you know, through our coverage. We had team coverage all morning, and I feel like 3 different interviewees said, including Bob Costas, actually, he's like, never meet your hero because they never live up to what you're thinking. And Ryne was one of those guys where you meet him and he meets or exceeds that hero label that you've heard about him.
Oh, 100%. And I'm like a family level too. My uncle was a fill-in bat boy, and I think it was 1984 for the Cubs, and he was 20 years old and was an emergency replacement, and got to sit next to Ryne Sandberg in the day. We were texting about this last night in a group text because we were all just kind of reminiscing about stories, and he was saying like it was crazy because he sat next to me like he wasn't the biggest star on one of the biggest teams in the major leagues right there. He was just sitting there just chatting and just talking to him about baseball, about life. Just all the other teammates came up and chatted with him too. And that kind of emanated down from the team too. Is like, you know, you can't have that arrogance if you're going to be that big of a star in one of the biggest teams, and especially in one of the biggest sporting leagues in the world. And I think that's something that a lot of people are going to carry with them, especially the ones that got to meet him and we're lucky enough to spend some time around him too.
Yeah, and
Chris,
what a great lesson for kids out there today.
Yeah, absolutely. I was going to ask you, Chris, how big of a shock did this come to the sports world? I know it has been no secret that Ryne had been in a battle with prostate cancer, but 65 years old. How big of a surprise was last night when the news came down?
I don't know if surprise is a good word. I think it was the news we were all dreading for a while, and I think I put it in the same kind of vein as Steve McMichael. As we knew that it is a difficult situation, and when you're facing an illness like that, and especially something as dreadful and disastrous as cancer, we all know someone who's been affected by that. We start thinking about, okay, well, what's the best case scenario? And sometimes you want to brace yourself for the worst, but always hope for the best. And I think at this time, and at that point, we were all just kind of thinking, oh, okay, like it's at some point we're going to get the bad news, but until then, we're just going to hold on to the things that made us remember why he was so special. And for everybody, it was different. And I think those memories come to the forefront too. And while we're waiting for the bad news, we keep coming up with great memories. And I think now especially in the last 12 hours or so, we started to see a lot of those things come to the light. And I think at this specific instance, it's, I guess, the best of a bad situation where you start thinking of all the glorious things, all the things that made someone so special. And I think the more we keep doing that, that's the best way to honor someone's legacy.
And we understand the Cubs are going to be wearing a patch, I believe, Chris, for the rest of the season to honor him.
That I'm still working on confirming, but I would not be surprised, especially with how much he meant to this organization, how much he still spent around the Cubs too. Another thing that was big was he spent time around the current Cubs. They talked about it last night after the game, and that was a big thing. And it wouldn't surprise me if they went and did so much to honor a guy that meant so much to even the present day team.
Before we let you go, Chris, I believe we have a team, a crew headed up to Milwaukee for the game tonight. What do you predict the atmosphere is going to be like at where the Brewers play?
Yeah, I think it's going to be one of just joint, I guess, just a communal understanding that we lost a legend, and I think there was a lot of that, especially when the Brewers came to Wrigley Field and they had some moment of silence for Bob Uecker too, where that was a legend, that was a franchise legend that we lost and we were in mourning, and the Cubs made it a point to help honor him, especially with Craig Counsell being a former Brewer,
right.
Brewers manager as well. But I think since he was so universally loved, I think we're going to see a lot of that same. We're going to see a lot of that same love, a lot of that same. A lot of people understanding that this is bigger than just one franchise, that this person, even though you may have not liked it when he was a player, he may have given you some bad memories, there is still a reason why he was so beloved, and they're going to do their best to remember that.
Thank you
Chris,
so much, sir.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Those moments in sports where fans kind of come together from opposing teams, I always appreciate those moments because to me, that's sports showing its best side and best self. When, Chris was mentioning how the Cubs helped out honoring Bob Uecker, lifelong Wisconsinite, and he expects the same to happen up at County Stadium today. Right. So I think it's always beautiful when that happens.
But it speaks to Sandberg though too, as a person, because he was so beloved and such a kind person. What a beautiful tribute for his family. As they grieve this.
Yeah, it's tough. 65.
Yeah. 5 children, happily married.
Yeah. Your heart just goes out to Margaret and the whole fam there, right. And you can't help. I don't know if you've noticed as we cover the news, isn't it so much different covering the news as a parent?
Yes.
As it was before. We always remember our career, but then when our parents get up into that age range as well, my parents being in their mid 70s, these stories because 65 is not very old, it hits you different too when it's like you can in some small way put yourself in that position.
Yeah. Well, we're going to head to break, but when we come back, we're going to talk about this TikTok trend that hopefully will help you reach all of your life goals. I'm like, my ears are wide open on this. We'll be right back.
Ayurvedic. Yes, that's coming up. Welcome back to Chicago Now. Talk about wellness trends. All right. Off the top of my head, all right, you got like mindfulness, yoga, the Atkins diet.
Yeah, I know. Mine goes to all diet-related stuff.
Yeah,
or like the weird
keto.
The weird like the skincare routines, like the snail mucus.
Snail
you
mucus
missed out
was a
on
thing?
You missed out on that one.
Okay,
That's
I
still a
haven't
thing,
heard
I
about
think.
snail
Or the
mucus.
glass skin.
Sounds very
Yes.
therapeutic, though.
I don't know.
Okay, we kid around, but there's always online new health, wellness trends. This one, however, has stood the test of time, okay? And I feel like uncultured because I hadn't heard of it, but it's called Ayurveda, and it's having a moment on TikTok. So maybe like what's old is new again?
Could be.
Could be. Behind the viral videos, and apparently the morning routine is very aesthetic. So maybe it's like social media friendly.
We need an explanation.
We've
got an expert
for
here.
that, we have an expert, Nidhi Pandya. You're an Ayurvedic expert, and you have authored a book, which is a bestseller now, called Your Body Already Knows. Nidhi, thank you so much for joining Chicago Now. We appreciate it. As you can tell, we need all the information on this because we know nothing about it, all right? So get us updated. Let me start off by asking you, for those of us, and Natalie are very unfamiliar, what is Ayurveda and where does it originate?
So Ayurveda is the original science of life, and it originates 5,000 years ago from India. Being the science of life, it covers everything from lifestyle to nutrition to prevention and treatment of diseases to beauty to rituals to fertility, child's care, anything that has to do with life, Ayurveda covers it. In fact, I have to say a lot of the current trends, wellness trends, beauty trends, even certain Nobel concepts that have won Nobel Prizes have their origins in Ayurveda.
So how do we practice this in our daily lives then?
So that's a large topic, but I'll tell you what's trending on TikTok, right? Because Ayurveda will tell you what to eat, it will tell you how to sleep, it will tell you how to make friends, who to marry, how to conceive a child, all of it. Like it'll tell you everything.
Wait, before you go to the viral, like what's trending right now, is there an English translation to the word itself? Because the way you're describing it, it's an umbrella. It's like an umbrella term for so many things. It's hard to narrow it down.
And I love that you asked me such a mindful question, but I will say, so Ayu means life and Veda means science. So it literally translates into the science of life. Oh. It understands the rhythms and the patterns outside, inside, our interaction. I mean, it is just a genius science. I'm ahaing every single day, even though I've been in this for my whole life.
Okay,
cool.
so
thank you.
Okay, so thank you for that. So let's say diet. How can we apply it to what we eat?
So, I mean, if I have to give you broad principles,
okay,
heavy lunch, light dinner. Like the first principle is you follow the sun. We're diurnal mammals. That's the first principle. And it's a game changer. If you eat a light dinner, which our ancestors never ate heavy dinners because they did not have electricity and they didn't have chronic disease, both, right? Electricity has only come into our homes in the 1930s. So it's that new. And if you see how chronic disease has risen, the second, which is kind of a little bit of a shocker for people, is do as many cooked foods as you can rather than raw foods. And if you do raw foods, make sure they're always paired with some kind of oil, some kind of vinegar, some kind of lemon juice. But cooked foods is really what made us human. If you go back into the evolution of mankind, you'll realize that our gut and our brain changed. It's really what makes us this intellectual species on the planet, is because we started using fire to cook our foods.
That's so fascinating. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, no, it just helps to restore the microbiome in the gut. Cooking
okay,
food.
So cooked, and if it's not cooked, add an oil. Okay, so let's fast forward to today, from 5,000 years ago. There's something about Ayurveda that is now trending online on TikTok. What is happening?
Okay, so there are all these using oil in different parts of your body. But I'm going to actually start with the premise first, and then I can explain the trends, which are just going crazy. But oil basically is a substance that replenishes your microbiome, no matter where you use the oil, right? So most microbiome is lipophilic, all the good microbiome, which means that they live on fats, they need fats. And we're just in this dry place, air conditioned. So we really need that replenishment. That's one principle. And the second principle is that skin is a channel of consumption. Like you don't just consume through your mouth and your gut, which kind of progressively gets worse as we age. So you want to utilize other channels of consumption. And skin is a channel of consumption. So I want to talk about just 2 or 3 trends really quickly, which utilize oil and have just, made it to the world. The first one is called oil pulling, which is you take oil in your mouth, a spoonful of either coconut, or you take a mouthful of sesame, not toasted, regular sesame oil, and you swish. You just swish for about 4 or 5 minutes, and then you spit that oil out in your trash can, not in your sink. And what this does, you'll see, like your dentist is going to be like, are you cheating on me? Because it's going to replenish the microbiome. It's going to help with gingivitis. It's going to help with bad breath. It's going to help with cavities, with root canals. You're going to be like, why was I not doing this my entire life?
What kind of oils again? Tell me.
Also
tell
plaque
us.
and whitening.
Coconut and sesame, but not
toasted. Okay.
So that's one trend. Another trend, which is again blowing up, is scalp oiling, right? So the nourishment, like our hair is like basically it's dead tissue, but the roots, our follicles, is really where the nourishment lies, and you want to replenish that nourishment because again, we kind of dry out, we overthink, we're always stressed, and we see that we dry out as we age, right? Drying is dying. So oiling your scalp, right? Oiling your scalp, massaging your scalp, and even your hair is a great way to not only keep your nerves calm, not only keep your brain active, not only to give you good sleep, but also to have really good hair. So a couple of times a week, there are a lot of oils out there, a couple of times a week before you go for your head wash, you want to oil your hair and keep it on for 20 minutes. So that's another trend. And if you have time, I can talk for about a couple more trends because
Yeah, let's
TikTok,
do it. Lay it on us, sister. We're ready.
Okay. So the third trend, again, which is an oil-based trend, is body oiling. Again, for the same thing, like you would oil your body before you would get into the shower. And you would, and it does the same thing, right? Because the skin barrier is compromised in water. If you stayed in water for a long time, you see what it does to your skin.
Oh, yeah.
Oil your body, you create that lymphatic drainage, that flow, and if the pores open up with the warm water, the oil kind of penetrates inside. It also detoxifies, the only substance in the world, and that's why even oil cleansing has become big. It's the only substance in the world that can actually penetrate inside, pull grime out, but nourish and hydrate. So it's detoxifying and it's nourishing. So whether you're oil cleansing, whether you're body oiling, and right before you go into the shower, you'll notice like the glow is different and you feel different.
What kind of oil are we talking about here with the scalp and the body?
So for the scalp, I mean, there's a lot of herbal medicated oils. So if you look Ayurvedic oil for hair, you'll get a bunch of options.
Okay.
But you don't have to go that far. Even if you just go and buy a good bottle of plain organic sesame oil, you're gold. You can start there. I always tell my clients that's where you start. And then when you graduate into using more of the herbal oils, some of them do have a peculiar smell that you have to get used to. But once you are like everything else, it almost feels very wholesome.
And you just put it on 20 minutes before either a shampoo or a shower and let your skin absorb it, let your scalp absorb it, and then hop in the shower?
Yeah, no, so for the scalp, yes, but for the shower, you can actually just put it on right before you get into the shower.
Oh, okay.
I mean, look, the ideal prescription is you put the oil on, you do a little bit of body movement, you get some sun, get that vitamin D. Yes, Ayurveda knew about vitamin D back then, and that's a fat soluble vitamin, by the way, vitamin D. So you got a little bit of sun and then you went in the shower. But if you cannot do that, which is a big ask, you just apply the oil before you get into the shower and you'll still get a good amount of the benefits. And then cleanse with oil. Don't cleanse with soap, cleanse with oil. And it's the same thing. It'll detoxify and nourish.
So Nidhi, the clients that you work with, what are some of the things that they say after they start integrating these things into their daily routine?
Honestly, like I wish I could show you the testimonials or the videos because they are like, we can never go back to not oiling.
Wow.
The word for oil in Ayurveda in Sanskrit is sneha, which is also the word for love. It is the most loving practice for your system. And people are like, I can never not body oil. I can never not do this again.
Wow.
It's like a warm hug. Why do I depend on anybody else when oil can do it for you?
Okay, I am not a skin expert or anything, but there's no pore clogging compounds in these kinds of oils where it could lead to a breakout?
And I love it. You may not be a beauty expert, but you're very logical, and I love that. And that's why, so basically what happens is that when oil gets clogged, your natural oils get clogged because they have no outlet. You're sitting in an air conditioning room or all your pores are shut down and oil starts to clog, you can get pimples. That's correct, right? But if you cleanse with oil on a daily basis, it pulls the grime out of your skin and you wash it open. You'll actually see that it's just replenishing it's kind of balancing the pH on your face. It's regulating the environment. Listen, I just don't break out since I had oil cleansing, and I would break out every month a little bit. I just have had zero breakouts in the last 2 years when I systematically moved to oil cleansing. Like when I say zero, it's a zero.
Your skin looks flawless from here via Zoom.
Thank you. Honestly, it's been pretty decent, so I can't complain.
Well, thank you. That you've enlightened us so much, Nidhi. Thank you. And your book is called Your Body Already Knows. Do you have a website where people can go if they want more information?
Yeah, and that's my first name, NIDHI.me, like M-E. Easy.
Thank you so much. My wife's going to go nuts over this info. Thank you for coming on Chicago Now. Really appreciate it. That was kind of enlightening.
It was in so many ways to me.
You're going to be oiling up that scalp?
I don't know. I've been following this. So there's this glass skin trend.
Okay.
And it's in the Korean beauty routine, maybe Japanese as well. It's very big. And you use it's like a 9-step process, okay, for your skin. But one of the things is cleansing with oil. And that to me just sounded counterintuitive. So that's something I'm going to look more into.
That's why I asked her, but she's like, when your body's, it gets clogged there and it's dry and they close, that's when the breakout can happen. But she's saying that if you use it, it'll literally open up your pores and pull the
Anthony, we could look 25 forever.
Exactly.
You know?
We're getting the hard rap from the team here. So we're going to be back to dive into these very important questions about dating in this political climate and how to navigate that territory when we come back.
Hey, welcome back to Chicago Now. So we are waiting on our next guest here, the host of the Rich Little Broke Girls podcast, which I really love the name of that, Kimberly Bizu. And we're talking about women. I mean, we're still trying to have it all, and it's really difficult. You guys have it easy, okay?
We do.
You know that. That's why you're a good man. But we're going to talk a little bit about kind of fitting everything in, but also, you know, the generation that below
Gen
millennials,
Z.
the Gen Zers. I always want to say Gen Alpha because that's what my child is. It's not Gen Alpha. They're really concerned about politics and dating. And
it's such a topic. Remember when we were young, politics was just boring, right? Like, well, actually, your dad was it was in a political role.
Right.
As a kid growing up, I don't think I knew who the Secretary of State was. I don't think I knew who, the White House Chief of Staff. Well, you know what I'm saying? Like, politics as sport is kind of a relatively new phenomenon, and so
for me, it was, common talk in my household. Every night, mom and dad were talking about it. And so it was an important aspect of finding a partner who had similar political beliefs.
That was a thing.
That was a thing. Or besides that, cared about policy in and of itself. Because I like to talk about it a lot at home.
I think I grew up in the lull where it was like you heard about, my parents' generation, all the Vietnam protests on campuses and that. And then there was this, I can't speak for everybody. Obviously, can't speak for you, but there was like this lull where we started to care about politics when we were mature enough, when we were adults, and we started caring about, where are my tax dollars going? What does this mean? What are the implications of this new ordinance? It didn't come till later, but it's happening with the news cycle, with social media. I think what's happening
it's
now.
Everywhere, right?
Everywhere.
Yes.
You can't go, the very few places where something doesn't come up, whether it's a, kind of a cultural issue, the culture wars right now, whether you're talking about, rights for certain groups and how to handle this territory, or if it's like strict like tax policy and everything gets talked about so much earlier now. So we're going to be joined by this guest who's going to talk about navigating that territory for all the Gen Zers. We have her now.
Kimberly Bazoo, how are you?
Hello, how are you?
So let's dive into this right off the bat here. You're concerned about politics, you're getting in the dating world. Is this a topic that comes up on the first date, or when do you bring this up?
Oh my God, you know what? I think that it all depends on how strongly you feel about your political values. And so I always tell the girls, if you are going to approach this conversation, I think you should be very clear about what your core values are, and then also what issues you actually care about. And then once you know what you care about, you hold your cards close to your chest, and then in a very open-ended, judgment-free way, you ask their opinion about, different issues or, different core values, just so that you're getting the real and you're not getting the I'm trying to impress you answer. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Do you advise, let's say you're in the dating world right now. Do you advise kind of leaning into the possibility of speaking about these issues with a new acquaintance, or getting to know that person on more of a personal level before you delve into topics like this, which can be pretty touchy?
Yeah, I think so. I live between New York and LA. And so these are very liberal cities. And I do think that socially, a lot of people have this liberal mask where, they care socially about a diverse range of topics, whereas I do feel like oftentimes conservative values are a little bit more behind closed doors. And so I think it's really important to just see if you align on your values, right? Your values are going to influence everything. And to be honest, I don't think everyone cares about every single issue, across the political aisle, right? Everyone has their specific issues that they hold very strong beliefs with. And I think if you can align on your values, then everything else will just fall into place. And no, you guys do not have to vote the same to be friends. I think, again, you have to hold space for nuance and just say, hey, is there some alignment here? Do we share similar values? Yes, cool. We can be friends, or we can get to know each other romantically,
I love that you use the word values, because I think that's something that Anthony and I can relate to, because it really is a value-based issue, right? Whether you're talking about reproductive rights, really that's the only one that comes to mind right off the jump if you're in a relationship, what choices you're going to make as you walk down that path. But are there other factors that you're seeing as becoming bigger priorities in relationships these days as couples start out that maybe Anthony and I and older generations might be different for us to hear?
Oh my God, you know what? I have realized both in dating, but also just like socially as you're making new friends, I've realized that your position on global conflicts has become a really big one. And I think there are some people that are open to the nuance, whereas there are other people that need you to choose a side and to pick a side. And so I think that is something that I'm starting to see kind of bubble up in terms of making new friends and also like potential, romantic relationships.
That's interesting. So you're seeing it bubble up. Natalie and I were speaking during our commercial break about how politics were a regular topic as she was growing up in their household during dinner time, that kind of thing. Whereas for me, I didn't really even start seriously considering global conflicts and things until I was like well into, I don't want to say well into adulthood, but like college age and after college. I just don't, I was privileged, and this is a sign of privilege probably, but I just concentrated on my schoolwork, you know?
Yeah. Well, think about it like this, right? Gen Z and all the generations thereafter have the world at our fingertips, right? If I open TikTok, I know what's happening all the way across the world. It is so easy to get sucked into issues that are happening well beyond, state lines, party lines. And so people want to know where you stand. I think oftentimes, a lot of the times, it's virtue signaling, but still, people want you to have an opinion. People want you to have an opinion, and they want you to stand firm in your opinion. And you hear it a lot, but people will say things like, "Well, are you going to be on the right side of history?"
Yeah, that comes with a lot of implications. Before we let you go, do you have any advice? Let's just say two people have just met and they may not be aligned specifically on specific issues. However, as Natalie and you pointed out, their underlying values may be more aligned than those surface issues might indicate. So, do you have any advice in terms of navigating like a first date where you're trying to feel each other out, not burn the bridge completely, but to maybe get a healthy dialogue going?
I personally always have to remind myself to lead with curiosity and not defense, right? And so the goal isn't to convince, it's to understand. And I think you can stay rooted in your beliefs while still being open to hearing where someone else is coming from. So although you guys may be misaligned on some issues or some values, I think at the end of the day, you can gain anything out of any experience.
Yeah.
So just sit there, be open, lead with curiosity, and just try to understand where they're coming from.
I
love
love that you said that because I
love
wish
that.
more people thought in that
Yeah.
same vein. That is just fantastic.
That's great. Kimberly, thank you so much. And hey, where can people find your podcast before we let you go?
It's called Rich Little Broke Girls. It's for aspiring housewives and CEOs, and you can listen to it on all podcast
Great
platforms.
Thank you
name.
so much.
Thank you. Nice to see you.
Thank you, guys.
Aspiring
Very well said.
housewives.
You know what? I when she said lead with curiosity, that really,
Yeah.
I think that's what led both of us into journalism to begin with. But
Totally.
I do think
Yeah.
that's good when you're with someone where you can kind of use your intuition and tell, hey, they may not agree with me, but if you lead with curiosity, she's right. You can take something out of you can get something out of every interaction, even if you're not totally aligned. If you lead with that curiosity.
Yeah, there's a lot of people that just want to shut it down, though, as soon
Exactly.
as they know that you're not on the same side.
Boom!
So,
They want to
all right.
come in with the hammer.
Yeah, they do.
Yes.
We'll be right back. of the big stories that we've been following here on Fox 32 on the news side of things is yesterday, tragically, a young New York City police officer lost his life, one of 4 people who were shot and killed by a gunman who drove all the way from Las Vegas to New York City. He had a long gun with him as well as a pistol, and they're still trying to work out a motive here, but he walked right inside of a building, a high rise that contained offices for the NFL as well as some financial offices, and opened fire on several people that he came into contact with.
One NFL employee remains hospitalized. We understand that individual's injuries are serious. The basic info we have so far on this is that the shooter was identified as 27-year-old Shane Tamura. As Natalie mentioned, Nevada resident. He does apparently have a history of mental illness. And according to police, he drove all the way across the country. This happened on the 33rd. The reason we're going to bring in a security, we're waiting on our security expert to join the conversation here. Michael, can you hear us, sir? Michael Verdin. Can you hear us okay, sir?
Hear you.
There we go.
Hey,
there you
going?
are. Thanks for joining Chicago Now. We really appreciate it. Wish we were speaking under better circumstances here, but what can you tell us so far about the situation that happened at this high-rise in New York City and where the investigation stands this morning?
From what I understand, this was premeditated. The individual traveled from Nevada to New York. He clearly had a motive. What that motive is, we don't know right now. There's this connection to the NFL and CTE, which is a brain disease from repeated blows to the head. That's one possible connection. But whenever we have these kinds of tragedies, there's always you want to know what the reason behind the tragedy was. What was the motive? What was the in this person's case, this shooter's objective by traveling, halfway across the country to go to New York City and go right to this building. We're getting reports that he went to the wrong floor. They're still trying to link it to the NFL. I used to work for the NFL. I'm very familiar with the building. They're up on the 5th floor. He went to the wrong floor, and unfortunately, 4 people. I believe 4 or 5 people were shot.
My questions around this center around the mental health question of this man. And my understanding was early reports that he was actually a security guard at one of the casinos in Vegas, and that's maybe why he had access to this assault rifle as well as the pistol that he brought with him. But I don't know how familiar you are with the gun laws in Vegas and Nevada, but clearly looser than they are here, because I would think that would be considered the red flag law, and that you could not get firearms if you had serious mental health issues.
You're correct, and that's going to be something that they're going to have to determine in the investigation, because it's really it's confusing that he's a licensed security officer, and it looks like a licensed armed security officer. I think he broke a law by transporting that firearm to New York. I'm pretty sure he did, but that's besides the point. The fact that he has a firearm in the first place, his medication was with him in the car when they searched the car, but I hope it could be just a crack, it slipped through the crack in the law, which we see, unfortunately, at times. But you're right. He should not have been in possession of a firearm, and he should not have been licensed to carry that firearm.
Michael, what is your reaction to the security implications of this situation? So I'm reading here, 33rd floor of a high-rise building. Mm-hmm. I mean, I can't think of a high-rise down here in Chicago that doesn't have a pretty involved security process. You check in with the front desk.
Right,
there's security barriers. Mm-hmm. There's security guards. We've got folks with intercoms and suits walking around our building.
He's carrying this gun.
Yeah.
On security video, you can see him clearly carrying this ginormous assault rifle.
So what could have happened here?
Natalie, that's a very good point. And my answer is going to start with the point that you're making. I'm very familiar. I do tremendous amount of work in urban environments, including Chicago and also throughout the country. And like I said, I'm familiar with 345 Park Avenue. Back to the question, yes. When I work with an urban building, we start with the outer perimeter. Now there's technology, and this is all, hindsight's 2020, but there's technology. He's carrying that weapon open, right? You can see the weapon. There's video analytics that would detect that weapon, and then it would alert, in this case, like a security desk, hey, there's a guy outside the building with a firearm. As soon as that alarm gets tripped, they could lock down the building, right? That would be the first thing, to lock down the building, which is to lock down the exterior access points. Once he's in the building, that's where you kind of lose control. You can have turnstiles. Mm-hmm. You can have. They had an off-duty police officer, but now it's a firefight. So the best preventative measure is to identify that threat on the outside. Mm. And I work with a lot of hospitals, and I'm always accentuating that lockdown capability. But once they're inside the building, day to day, in these big offices, you're right. There should be a visitor management system, a process. He's a visitor, he doesn't work in the building. And there should be a vetting to allow like a non-tenant, non-employee to access the building.
I'm glad you brought that up, because that technology where it's almost uses AI to identify a firearm. I know that there were, I think, a couple schools in the Chicagoland area that were looking at integrating that kind of technology, or they were testing it out. Because what you said makes perfect sense. And, once he gained access to the building, we're seeing these pictures, Michael, of the people inside the offices that heard the gunfire and then were just piling like couches and tables in front of the doors to protect themselves.
Yeah, and that's the hide component of run, hide, fight. I give them credit for doing that. What we don't know at this point is, was there an emergency management plan to include active shooter for the building? I'm going to assume, I've done a lot of work in New York, they did have some type of plan. The big thing there is how they notified the tenants. So you're in that building. How are tenants notified? How are visitors notified? Is there a public address system? Is there a siren? Is there a strobe light? Also, they do like a multi-platform notification. It could be an email, could be a text, it could be a call to a hardline phone, could be a call to a cell phone. I'm a proponent of all of that. Uh-huh. If there's an active shooter, you put it out to the building by any means necessary. I don't know at this point if that was put out. I know the police response was very quick, and it was a massive response based on the video. But yeah, that's another big part of this, is the response to the emergency.
Let's talk about that a little bit and where we go from here, because I know that with we know at this point that there's no venue in America that is safe from gun violence. We've seen it happen in movie theaters, of course, school shootings, and we've seen protocol change over the years. And, for example, it's sad, but kids have to do active shooter drills now, for example. How rare is a situation like this, where it happens on the 33rd floor of a corporate high-rise in downtown Manhattan? And do you see anything changing with regard to high-rise security protocol after an incident like this?
Yeah, and that's the really difficult part of all of this is, there's always that review of what occurred and what could have been done to prevent this, right? What do I see changing? This is just human nature in a way. It's the analogy I use is they put the traffic light up after the fatal, crash at the intersection. Yeah. Well, I come from the school of being preventative, getting out in front of it. So it comes down to what I call a layered approach. And your question is about changing. They shouldn't need to change. They should be current. And when I say current, I'll keep it very simple. There should be an emergency plan for that building to include active shooter. There should be training for that building. You can have the plan, but you have to have training. And not training just with the building occupants, but with local law enforcement and local fire department, in case of a fire, for example. So that's two things, a plan and training. A third thing is technology. We've touched upon some of this. Panic alarms. I didn't mention panic. I mentioned lockdown and analytics, but also a panic system. So all of that working together, and like a site assessment of a building and a property can tell you what they have and what they need to protect themselves, but also to respond to an emergency.
Well, G. Michael Verdon, you have been just a wealth of knowledge this morning. We really appreciate all of the time that you've given us here on Fox 32, because I know you're a frequent contributor for us, the founder and CEO of the Lake Forest Group. Thanks again.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
And we have more Chicago Now right after this, so stay with us.
Good morning, 11 o'clock for Chicago Now. We're going to be talking about breakups. Do you remember having a bad breakup?
Oh yeah, I remember my bad breakup in college. I feel like it's usually that time, your early adulthood, where you have to go through at least one to really understand and get through and know what you want.
What made it so bad?
I was just so in love, you know? I was so in love, but I kind of was the one who like made the chaos and made it happen. So like at the same time, I don't know why I was so upset thinking back, but how about you?
Yeah, my breakup was so bad it made me move to another state.
Okay, yeah,
we'll talk about that.
I think that's a little more than me.
Yeah, that's really good in person. Okay, we're going to talk to author and breakup expert. Her name is Amy Chan. She's joining us right now. Thank you so much for being with us.
I'm so excited to be here.
So it's so crazy right at the bottom of the screen. I don't know if you can see it, but our viewers can. It says Breakup Bootcamp. What is that all about?
So I run a 4-day intensive retreat to help people heal their heart using science-backed methods. And it's a boot camp. They're in programming from 8 in the morning till about 9 o'clock at night.
So what kind of science-based methods can help people?
So I think when someone is going through a breakup, it's important to understand that there's different stages of healing. And what you do in the beginning stage is going to be very different, say in 3-4 months. And in the very beginning, you need to process that there's this new reality that you're no longer in the relationship. And this means talking about it, journaling about it, repeating how you feel, instead of trying to analyze what they're doing, what they're not doing, and how they can give you closure. That's what keeps people stuck.
Let me ask you something. You know, there are people that handle breakups differently.
Yeah.
Some people literally go to therapy. Some people drink themselves under a table. They use, bad methods. Just talking to our viewers right now, what would be some advice you would give to someone that may not be able to come to your breakup boot camp right away? What kind of advice would you give them to kind of get over it?
The number one thing I am going to say is do not reach for a vice like alcohol or even dating right away. All you're doing is procrastinating your pain, and that pain will eventually catch up to you either in your next relationship or in regret. And so what you want to do right away is you want to stop having contact with your ex, because your brain has neural pathways that wire together when you're in a relationship. So if you keep looking at old photos, texting your ex, meeting up with your ex, you don't allow those neural pathways to prune away. And that keeps you attached, and sometimes this feeling of being addicted to your ex.
You know, I think dating has changed so much, even in the last 10 years or so, having dating apps, you know, sometimes you like to get advice from your parents or your grandparents even, and it's a totally different dating age. So how did you make this kind of like a modern spin? What do you think you've changed now versus what maybe our parents or grandparents would give us as advice?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people say that dating is harder now than ever, and I would say I probably agree. The proliferation of apps has caused people to almost treat people like they're not even humans, but they're objects, and you're just judging them prematurely. And so I think with all of this choice, there's also this lack of satisfaction when you do choose, and people aren't committing. So how do we counter that? I do suggest that people do the apps, but I always tell my clients you should have 3 different ways of meeting people. So if apps is one of them, another one you might want to add is joining a running club or doing some sort of a hobby where you'll meet like-minded people. But this whole like, I'm gonna just give up on dating, there's no good people left, that is typically a defense mechanism. And if you just sit at home and watch Netflix all day, love is not going to just land on your lap and find you.
You know, I was talking to one of our coworkers. She was asking me my advice because I'm married. And she said, you know, where can I go find, you know, eligible singles that have money? I told her to go to Home Depot.
Hey,
go to Lowe's.
You know what?
At least they're homeowners. At least
who's trying to fix something up. You guys could be flippers or something like that.
Let me ask you this in all seriousness when it comes to dating, because like you said, dating in the new age, now when you date someone, in some ways you date everyone around them. And what I mean by that is if you follow them on social media, the algorithm knows you, they know them. Now all of their friends are popping up. Maybe you are friends with some of their friends. The breakup happens. What do you do to make sure that you're still protecting your heart, protecting your mind, and not seeing all the people associated with them? Would you suggest to defriend them?
So when you go through a breakup, you need to kind of consider that you almost have this big open wound. And what you do for the next 2 months is going to be very different than what you do in months 3 or 4. So in the very beginning, I do suggest, if you can, get off of social media. Tell your friends how to support you. And that might mean, hey, I know you want the best for me, but please don't tell me what my ex is doing or give me any updates. You want to protect yourself as much as you can. And that might mean if you know they're going to be at that party or that restaurant, you don't go. And I know it might seem very unfair, but this is only for the very beginning. When you have that big open wound, you don't want to make it worse.
It's so hard because you're so curious. You want to do that stalking so bad.
Yeah. Speak for yourself.
Yeah, I don't know.
When I'm done with you, I'm done with you.
Hey, that's a good way to think. And I think others should think that way too, like you said, Amy. So Amy, if you have a friend or a family member who's going through a breakup, should we gift them breakup boot camp right away, or is it okay to maybe do it a month later when you notice, hey, you're not doing too well? Yeah. Here's a gift for you.
Yeah, I think in the very beginning, if someone's going through a breakup, don't get them to analyze anything, and please do avoid trying to do the blame thing, because if the person is vilifying their ex, blaming their ex, hoping for their ex to change, they're still in a relationship with their ex, and that emotional charge keeps them connected. And so, yeah, I think send them to Breakup Boot Camp, get them to read the book, but maybe in a month afterwards, when the shock is subsided and they're actually ready to start looking at their patterns, their accountability, because it always takes 2 in a relationship.
Amy, what made you write this book in the first place?
Just like you, I had a very devastating breakup, and I put so much of my identity in him and in us that without that relationship, I completely fell apart. And I was trying to find something to help me. I could only find like yoga retreats, and I was fine for a week. I would come back and the same pain would flood in. And so I just was like, when I healed from that, which was really, really hard, I said, I have to create what didn't exist for me. And that's how Breakup Bootcamp was born.
Okay, so at the boot camp, what are some of the exercises that you guys do? Like, take us there so that we know.
Like a day in the life.
A day in the life.
Ooh, okay. So we do many different exercises. Some is to actually help you move emotion that's stored in the body and move it through. So there's different somatic movement exercises. There's exercises that uses primal screaming. I know that sounds scary, but then we also pair it with more of the scientific ways to shift patterns and behaviors. So we look at what are some of the subconscious beliefs, and we take a tried and tested framework to help shift those beliefs. We also help people understand what are their patterns, because the thing is, it's never just about the ex. There are old patterns that have been repeating, and if we don't understand what those subconscious patterns are, we will just keep choosing the same type of person, just in a different form.
Very good advice there. Let me ask you this. Do you find that you see people that are divorced as well? Or are you seeing people that were more into, a relationship where they have not married?
It's across the board. So I'm definitely seeing people after their first major breakup, in their late 20s, early 30s, they thought they were going to marry the person. I definitely see people after being married for 20 so years, having children, they've broken up or they've divorced. They don't even know what a dating app is. And then I get those people who might not have had a long-term relationship or even a label called a situationship, and they feel ashamed to come because they don't feel like they deserve their grief. But the reality is, whether you've been together for 20 years or 2 months, your pain and your grief is valid. They're very different types of grief, but they all deserve the attention to process and heal that in a healthy way.
I have had a couple friends who've gotten through bad breakups pretty recently. You never know what to say, right? And you never want to make them feel like, oh, you're saying this and you're in a happy relationship. But what are some key things that you suggest people use if someone they love is going through a bad breakup?
Number one, do not say this. It happened for a reason. Oh, you're way better off. Or why can't you just get over it? Those platitudes really invalidate someone's experience. So let's stop saying that. Instead, just say like, hey, I love you. How can I support you? If you just want to talk about it, I'm here. Please refrain from giving advice or projecting, because when someone is healing, they just want to feel like they are safe and that they are not judged and that they can come to you and process and heal without you trying to fix them.
I bet you have to deal with a lot of different coping mechanisms too, across the board with the different age groups that you deal with.
Definitely. I mean, I've had people as young as 22 to 78 come.
Wow. That's a huge range.
Wow.
Let me ask you this, right? When it comes to breakups, a lot of times you see the ex in a few years, they realize, oh, you were the one for me. They have this coming to Jesus moment is what I call it, where they feel like, after they've dated all these bad people, you were the one. What is your advice to someone when the person tries to come back and rekindle that relationship when it was a really bad breakup?
They always try crawling back.
Yes, they do.
This is such a common thing that happens.
Yeah.
The only time you should consider getting back together with your ex is if there's been new data. So just because you miss the person, just because there's been time that has passed, that might not mean anything has changed. They might still have the same patterns. They might still avoid conflict. So sometimes if someone had to break up because they lived in different countries and now that has changed, that's new data. But unless there's actually new data that's going to change the outcome of the relationship, then you do not get back together. And if you do get back together, you need to have parameters to know, is this relationship actually different? And you do check-ins probably once a month, and you set a period, maybe 6 months, to say, okay, is this actually working, or is this relationship exactly like how it was before?
Very good advice there. Let me ask you something. People watching right now, maybe they want to come to one of your boot camps. Maybe they want the book. Where can they find out more?
Yeah, my next retreat is in upstate New York at Hemlock Neversink in November of this year. And then the book, you can buy it on Amazon. And I also have a podcast that goes through each different stage of healing from a breakup using the signs and understanding what's actually happening in your brain and your body.
Very good.
Really good advice.
I wish you were
so
there.
much, Amy. Oh my gosh, I
For
could have
our
used
breakups.
this, years ago. But now I'll use that advice and use it for people I love who might be going through a breakup. All right, Amy, thank you so much.
Thanks
we
for
appreciate
being
your
with us.
time.
Thank you.
We'll
Nice
be
to
right
meet you.
back.
Welcome back. This is the time of the hour where we kind of slow the show down and talk about something serious. We are talking about the deadliest cancer in the U.S. right now, lung cancer. And joining us to talk more about this is Dr. Juanita Mora, National Volunteer Medical Spokesperson for the American Lung Association and also a physician with Chicago Allergy Clinic. Thank you so much for being with us.
My pleasure to discuss such an important topic.
You know, very interesting information out there that less people are smoking, but we still have the same amount of people with lung cancer. Do we know exactly why and what the cause is?
Well, that prompts a wonderful conversation, which is what causes lung cancer in our non-smoking population. And among those triggers, one is radon exposure. Radon is a colorless, odorless gas that can seep in through cracks in our foundation in our home. It can come through walls, it can come through the soil as well too, and it can easily be tested with a radon kit that can be found at lung.org that people can purchase and make sure that they don't have radon exposure at home. Second thing, air pollution. Air pollution is causing more and more particle pollution that is causing long-term lung cancer that we're seeing in populations, especially when it comes to natural disasters, like the 911 explosions, when we have them, like the wildfire smoke that we're being exposed to, and so many other things. Number three that we know causes lung cancer is secondhand smoke exposure. When it comes to maybe the wife or the husband smokes, and they have smoked for many years, or maybe their boss smokes. Like I had a patient yesterday, 20 years, he has never smoked, but was exposed to his boss smoking in a small actual factory, and now he has emphysema and COPD, and I'm screening him with an actual CAT scan. And number four that I always have to say in our population as well too is maybe people who quit smoking within the last 15 years and need basically screening with a CAT scan of the chest. So that way we can detect early lung cancer, because we know that detection is prevention, and it really does equivalent to saving lives.
So Dr. Mora, a quick follow-up to what you just said there. So does that mean that people need to have a radon detection system in their home, and that system that really flushes out the radon and makes sure that the air is purified? And then secondly, are you suggesting that people wear masks in some cases when they're outdoors? And then what do you do if your mom or, you know, your dad smoke and you have to be around them? What can you do about that?
Love the questions. Number one, yes, every home should be tested for radon, because it's that killer odorless and colorless gas that if we catch it, we can definitely bring it out of our homes and stop exposing our kids, our family members, etc. And it's an inexpensive test kit that we can do. And so you can get it even in hardware stores, but at lung.org, our website, we can do it. Number two question that you had was what to do as well too when it comes to if your spouse smokes or anyone smokes. First of all, get them to contact us at the American Lung Association for quitting step 2 smoking. Number two, making sure that we clear the home, that we talk to them about the dangers of smoking or even vaping now that we know, and trying to basically make our homes smoke free, and also screening for those patients who have been exposed to that secondhand smoke.
Dr. Mora, you're here in Chicago. How prevalent is lung cancer, and what are some of the trends that you're seeing here locally?
Well, one of the things that we definitely learned, we had a lung cancer actual dinner last year. So lung cancer is the #1 killer in women here in the state of Illinois. So that speaks volumes. And what we know is that prevention is key. And the more we talk about it, the more we raise money as well too, so that funds are available for more research, for earlier detection. I think it's important. I especially love to talk into minority populations where air pollution is going to be more prevalent as well too. Those smoky yellow buses for the kids, and the tailpipes, and the plants that bring out all this air pollution. So I think it's important, which prompts the third question, which on red days, on maroon days, on purple days, when it comes to air pollution, people should be wearing a mask, because that helps all these particles from not entering our lungs and doing long-term damage, which can result in lung cancer.
Wow, so even during some of those moderate days.
Yeah,
that's good advice.
Dr. Mora, you know, I've had the situation of being tested for breast cancer. What is the screening like to be checked for lung cancer? What do people have to go through?
The beautiful thing, it doesn't even involve contrast. So it's a non-contrast CAT scan of the chest. So it's really easy, done within 10-15 minutes. And all you have to do is ask your primary care doctor if you've been exposed to secondhand smoke, or you were a previous smoker, or radon levels come back high in the home. This is your time to get screened for lung cancer. It's an easy test to do. And if we detect it early, 5-year survival rate, we're talking 95%, which is amazing. So the earlier we catch it, the more we can do.
And what are some of those early signs of lung cancer?
Unfortunately, once we detect lung cancer, the actual signs are usually come on late. And it's usually, for example, a cough with blood coming out, weight loss, fatigue, back pain, and among shortness of breath, wheezing. So new onset, basically dyspnea or shortness of breath. And then also maybe getting recurrent infections in the lungs might be an indication of lung cancer.
You know, Dr. Mora, we've seen a lot of situations lately where people are being cut off in terms of their health care. Are there any free options out there for people to go through the screening?
I love it. Yes, absolutely. So at our website at lung.org, there are organizations that partner up with the American Lung Association, so that they do provide basically services to maybe the uninsured or people who have lost insurance recently, which is exactly a lot of what we're seeing, so that they can get screened. Just like for breast cancer, they offer mammograms. There's places that offer free CAT scan screening, especially when we believe this is obviously the number one cancer in the entire United States. And if we can do more for it, that's the whole goal.
You know, I think we've heard it a million times, and especially for the young people watching, or the people who've tried quitting smoking cigarettes and are using vapes now. You know, whether it be, you know, tobacco or it be marijuana, we see a lot of that too. I guess, can we hit home on how dangerous those can be as well?
Absolutely, which prompts us, and I might have to come back to your show for this campaign. We're doing a back to school with asthma campaign and how to keep kids safe. So first thing I tell parents is have that conversation about the dangers of vaping and electronic cigarettes. Because if you don't have that conversation, guess who's going to have it? Their friends at school. So we know that because they don't really smell, they're so small that they can be disguised, especially as a marketing tool to attract these young people. They come in flavors like cinnamon, they come in flavors like gum, etc. But they have so many chemicals that they're inhaling. I have a patient who came here and he was an asthmatic, 18-year-old, senior year, was peer pressured into trying vaping. Asthma had been beautifully under good control, had not had an asthma exacerbation since he was a little kid. He came here to the office completely scared. He had been in the hospital and he really had, his asthma was out of control. And he says, Dr. Mora, I promise I'll never ever try a vape again, but just get my lungs back to normal. And that's the thing. Sometimes we don't know the damage that we're doing. There's been lung transplants secondary to vaping. So at Lung.org, we have a vape talk, which basically facilitates talking points from parents to kids so that you start this conversation, which is so important.
Dr. Mora, I have a follow-up question for you about, you mentioned, you know, obviously it is the deadliest cancer in the U.S. Once it's detected, what's the survival rate? Was it not, did you say 95%? Or I think I heard you say, depending on when it's caught, that could possibly be it?
Correct, depending on when it's caught. So if we catch it early, they have a 95% survival rate, because then chemo, radiation can be initiated, maybe tumor resection, etc. But if it's caught later, every 5 years that go by, then the survival rate goes down as well too. So this is why we do these wonderful campaigns to inform the public and try to do as much as we can to catch it early.
You know, there's a good question that's written down here from our producers. Could there be a genetic link to those who get lung cancer but don't smoke?
That's a wonderful question, and research right now is looking into it, because definitely we have families where they were non-smokers, and lung cancer definitely runs in grandpa, then dad, then, you know, the actual sons, etc., and it goes along. But we have not a lot of those connections made yet, so more to come.
All right, perfect. Dr. Mora, where can people that are watching right now find out more information?
Of course, they can go to our website at lung.org to find out more about any of these topics. When it comes to lung cancer screening, getting the CAT scan, we even have a quiz that they can take. Are you a good candidate for the CAT scan of the chest? So that way they can take it, and it's free on the website. They print it out, bring it to their primary. And then we also have the vape talk for teenagers and middle school kids, so that parents can begin that conversation.
I know it's a really hard conversation to have, but you have such an upbeat personality. You made it easy to talk about something that's so serious. We appreciate you for joining us.
Thank you.
Have a beautiful day.
All right, you too. Yeah, what a pleasant.
Honestly, yeah, and you know what? It's a complicated subject too, and there's a lot of research and a lot of statistics that she shared with us, but she made it easy for us to understand. Yeah, and I think it will get across to the audience too.
For sure. We'll be right back.
Welcome back to Chicago Now, about 11:30, and of course this news took Chicago by storm, and we're still talking about it this morning. Ryne Sandberg passed away this week at the age of 65 after a courageous battle with prostate cancer. So we're bringing in a special guest via Zoom this morning, Mark Carman with CHGO Sports Podcast. Mark, I know that you had a special relationship. You knew him well, and what's kind of your reaction after hearing this news?
Yeah, Tia and Gabby, thanks for having me. I appreciate the opportunity to talk about Rhino. I mean, we were not super close, but I was kind of in the sweet spot as a kid, where I was 11 years old in 1984. Where I was fortunate enough that my birthday party, I think I was able to take 5 friends to a Sunday game against the Mets, which the Cubs swept the Mets that day, and went on to, of course, win the division, and one of the 2 times Rhino was able to do that. But I did get to interview him much later in life at his house in Lake Bluff, and he was the kindest Ryne Sandberg you could ever believe. And after we're done, we're packing up, and we're heading back to the car. Thanks so much, Ryan. He's like, do you guys want to come in? And so he invites us into his house, into his basement, where he had all the memorabilia, his 9 gold gloves, jerseys, a letter from Harry Carey saying things like, hey, Rhino, I don't come into the clubhouse because I have to maintain my objectivity, but I just wanted to tell you how great you've been for the Cubs and what a class act you are. Like, to be able to read this stuff. And he was just, he did not have to open up his home like that. The interview was done. And Ryan would be around his house. You'd see him in the suburbs. You'd see him at farmers markets, and he would literally talk to everybody. And obviously one of the greatest to ever do it, first class all the way, Hall of Famer. So just a super sad day. Mid 60s. That's way too young for anybody. And Cub fans are obviously baseball fans. People are going to miss Rhino.
That's what I said too, Mark. When I saw the age, I didn't realize how young he was. I remember hearing about him during my childhood because my mom, like you, a huge baseball fan. Talk about his legacy that he leaves behind.
So, I mean, his legacy is somebody that just went about it doing things the right way every single day. He was out early taking ground balls. He was just a man that had a routine. He also had a funny side to him. He was famous for lighting guys' cleats on fire behind him, giving hot foot back in the day. That's what was fun in the clubhouse or fun in the dugout back then. But it was interesting when you look back at him. He was very quiet as a player. He wasn't, he was very focused on his craft. And then afterwards, he started to do more media. He wanted to become a manager. The Cubs put him into their farm system. He started as low as possible, worked his way up to AAA. They wouldn't give him the manager spot. He went back to where he was drafted. The Phillies finally let him be a manager for a couple of years. But I will work at being in the media. I will work at being a manager. I'll work at being the best baseball player. I will work at being, a great human being. I've used the word kind too, but just a pro, a pro's pro who had high standards for himself in every corner of the world. Seeming like a lot of us, we're going to do this well. We're going to, we can let that one over there slide. That wasn't Rhino. He tried to do everything to his best.
Go ahead. What were we going to say? I was going to ask about, honestly, when I heard about the cancer diagnosis, it was literally as I was reading about his death. Was this publicly known? Because I had never heard about this.
Yeah, it was out there, and he, sadly, he would put it on Instagram and talk about his journey, and at one point he was in remission, but he put out a post, feels like 6 weeks ago now, not exact, but somewhere like that, saying hey, maybe it was less than that actually, probably 3 weeks. Hey, I'm going to continue to battle, but things have. The cancer's return and whatnot, and it was basically him letting everybody know that the end was coming, and just super sad. Sorry, guys, just super sad that of course we're here today, but he did courageously keep people informed, and he'd be out to dinner and people would see him. Rhino, good luck to you. So he's very public about it, and didn't hide either as long as he could. He wanted to be at Wrigley Field as long as possible. It's truly just a guy who loved being a Cub.
Mark, we know we're bothering you at training camp right now, so thank you for taking the time to chat with us.
I wish I could have found a clean spot here for you, but there's a lot going on. So, here we are.
No, that's okay. You know, when I was chatting with my dad about this, because he's a big baseball fan, he said that this guy changed the game of being a second baseman. You know, for the audience who might not be aware, how did he do that?
Well, he was the first, second baseman to ever hit 40 homers in a season. So, he brought power to the position. So it wasn't just that he was winning, Gold Gloves. He was a batting champion in 1984. He had 314. He had 40 homers in 1990. He won the home run derby that year. That position was, a light hitting second baseman, good glove back in the day. And he turned it into, well, you can be a great defender and hit for power, hit in the middle of the order. Ryno loved to hit number 2, and that's where he's most comfortable. He'd fit great in today's game, but he wasn't, a guy that always tried to hit home runs. He was more, if you were going to try to imitate Ryne Sandberg, you were going to have a level swing, try to hit line drives, because he wasn't trying to take the ball out of the ballpark. He was just able to do it because he was so talented.
I know you're at Bears training camp, but have you heard of how Ryno will be remembered for the days to come?
I actually haven't, but the Cubs put up a statue of him last year, and they're going to have a patch. I know that for a fact. I don't exactly know how they're going to honor him on the next homestand. They're in Milwaukee right now, and I forget where they go from there. Maybe they're coming back home. But the patch will be there. I'm sure they'll have a moment of silence. I hope they, I don't know what fits right, but standing ovation for Ryno in some case, and whatever that feels like, because Cub fans are feeling this. This was all over the place. I mean, people that have loved the team forever, they're Ryno is deep in their hearts. And for somebody who's a kid from if you're in the age of 48 to 60, you kind of grew up with him, and he was number 1.
Well said.
Emma, we're on TV right now.
You got other people joining you in your live shot there. Mark Carman, it's always a pleasure. We appreciate you taking time out, because I know you got a lot going on to talk about Ryno with us. Thank you so much.
T and Gabby, I really appreciate being with you guys. Thanks so much.
All right, we'll see you soon. Yeah, definitely a heck of a legacy left behind for sure.
We've heard a lot of great information and stories about him this morning. I know Lou Canellis came on Good Day Chicago and said some great words, knowing him both as a sports reporter, but also kind of in his personal life. Yeah.
All right, we'll have much more on Chicago Now right after this break.
Hey, the reason I called, I'm here with Janelle. Janelle is with the DNA Doe Project, and many, many years ago, the remains of a young man were found here in my county. And it seems that you could possibly be a descendant or a relative of this young man.
Mm-hmm. Wow. So yeah, I have an older cousin who went missing in the 80s, the early 80s.
Really?
Yeah.
I'll talk to him.
Okay, I'm going to let you talk to Janelle.
Hi, Tariq. How are you?
Good. How are you doing, Janelle?
Good, good. Our team was doing some research on the family that you descend from, Sam Maxey and Lula Long. Do those names sound familiar to you?
Yeah, those are my paternal great-grandparents.
I wanted to ask, is it possible to meet with you and we can show you what we have? Hopefully
Sure.
identify this man.
Yeah. I definitely look forward to meeting with you all.
All right, thank you, sir.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you.
And we say yes.
Wow.
Wow.
Wow,
I'm
talk
already
about a
intrigued.
teaser.
That was a very good teaser.
Especially with a local connection.
Absolutely. So that is a new Nat Geo show. It is called Naming the Dead. And joining us right now is Jennifer Randolph, director of DNA Doe Project. Thank you so much for being here.
Hi, Tia. Hi, Gabby. Thank you for having me.
So let's talk about this Naming the Dead. So these are people that have passed away. They were all of these people murdered, and then you just don't know who they are. You can't identify them.
Well, it's true. They've all passed away. They're all decedents, and they didn't have any identification or any way of identifying them. They aren't always homicide victims, but that is often the case. But sometimes they've passed away, had a natural death, and they just didn't happen to have identification on them, or they were in an accident or something like that.
So what do you want people to take away from Nat Geo's Naming the Dead?
Well, I hope it opens the public's eyes to this issue of how many people there are that are unidentified, and it's over 50,000 in the United States alone. And I don't think many people realize that. But I also hope it opens their eyes to how many people are addressing this problem and how dedicated they are. And that starts with our agency partners who will, sometimes work their entire career trying to break open one of these cases. And it, of course, includes our organization and our great volunteers who are donating their time and their talent to try and get these individuals their names back. And then lastly, it's the impact it has on the families. I think the show does a great job of illustrating how important it is to have some resolution. I wouldn't call it closure, but to at least understand, what happened to your loved one, even if it's not the answer you were hoping for. So I hope they kind of can take away all of that, and maybe it will give some hope to families who have someone missing to know that there are people who never forget and keep working to try and identify individuals who've passed without their name.
Jennifer, can you talk about that work? Because oftentimes, at least in our profession, we have people maybe not dead that we're looking for, but we're trying to track people down. What is the work? What goes on behind the scenes and on camera to try to track down descendants?
So it's a long process. We have to, the first thing we have to even use this technique is a particular kind of DNA profile. So we have to be able to get DNA from the remains of the individual we're trying to identify. And it goes through a long process to eventually create a profile, just like the one you get if you take a direct-to-consumer test like Ancestry or 23andMe. That then goes into a database that we're allowed to use, and it's compared to everyone else in the database, many members of the public. And we're able to find people who share some amount of common DNA with our doe. And that means that they are somehow related. Somewhere in their respective trees, they have that common ancestor. And that's where the tree building comes in. So we have to build up and find these common ancestors that tie matches together, and then build down and try to find in the descendants our doe. And that can be tricky. We have to use all kinds of records and skills to build those trees both up and down.
And are we talking months, years? Like how long of a time span are we talking about behind the scenes before the cameras start rolling?
It is very variable. Depending on how high those DNA matches are, and by that I mean how much DNA they share, the more DNA you share, the more closely related you are, the smaller the trees you have to build. We can resolve some cases in an hour or two, and then there are other challenging cases that we have worked on for years. It took start to finish a good 3 years, for example, for the case that you just highlighted in that clip. and largely because of challenges in the lab. So sometimes that can be the what stalls out. Other times it can be very challenging genealogy. It just depends. Every case is different.
Yeah, that's a long time, 3 years. I can imagine, Jennifer, that you guys weren't able to really have this technology or connect the dots 10, 20 years ago. This is probably fairly recent technology that you guys are using.
Yeah, this technique really sort of started happening in this kind of scenario, being applied to this use of unidentified human remains in 2017. And our organization started in 2018. So we were really one of the trailblazers. We've been there since the beginning. But you're absolutely right. Before that, this wasn't an option available for these cases. And that's why you'll see so many of these are long-term cold cases. They were trying to resolve them, but they just did not have an adequate tool to do so. But now with this technique, we are able to come to a resolution.
Jennifer, can you give us a little sneak peek? So this week's episode, it is regarding a serial killer who killed roughly 20 men across Illinois and Indiana. What will we see in that episode without giving away too much?
Well, you'll get a little bit of background and context as to what you alluded to. You'll be able to get a peek at what goes on in the lab and sometimes what the challenges are that we face to get a case out of the lab. You'll see some of our people at work. You'll see the highs and the lows, and they are always there. So I think that'll be pretty exciting. And then most importantly, they'll get a window into the family's experience, what it means to them and how it affects them to finally have an answer and for their loved one's name to be restored. So they really are getting, that intimate look from start to finish.
I mean, you can even hear it over the phone in that clip, that short clip that we just showed. Oh, wow, that's my older cousin,
Yeah.
Really interesting, and I can't imagine being in that room and hearing that for the first time. I want to ask a little bit more about you, your interest in DNA. Did you ever think that it would lead into such a selfless mission?
Yeah.
No, I mean, this is a dream job for me because I have training in medical research as my background, including using DNA to study different diseases. And then genealogy was sort of a hobby and then kind of a small side gig. So to be able to find a job that brings both of those together and I feel like is having a positive impact, honoring the lives of these people, making sure they get their name back and providing answers to their family, I could not ask for a better job or a more rewarding job. So I'm just so grateful I have the opportunity to work with this organization.
Jennifer, how did Nat Geo even find out about this?
It's an interesting story. We have volunteers all over the world, and I was a volunteer in the UK, made a certain introduction, and one thing led to another, and here we are. It's really an interesting story, and you just never know when things are going to all come together, but we are so glad they did, and we are so pleased with how the show was made and how careful everyone was and respectful and how it reflects our work. We are just thrilled and can't wait for the public to see it.
Yeah, I find it very interesting because sometimes, being in journalism, I think it was a couple of weeks ago, we actually received images of people. It's very clear that they're deceased. Mm-hmm. They were veterans, and they still have not been able to piece together where their family is, who they are.
Yeah, that's another kind of scenario where this technique might be able to be applied and answers might be able to be found. Yep.
So the episode that will air is called The Hitchhiker. It premieres on August 2nd at 10 and also 9 Central on National Geographic and streams the next day on Disney Plus and Hulu. What else can people expect? How many episodes are we talking, Jennifer?
There are going to be 6 episodes, and each episode profiles a different case. So each episode is sort of its own story. But they all have this commonality of giving you that, that bird's eye view. You were right in the thick of things with us, experiencing it as it unfolds. So I think people will really enjoy it. It's very engaging and very just thought-provoking, and I think it will do well, I hope.
Yeah, I'm excited to see it. Yeah.
True crime does well. People love true crime and being able to follow along, on the journey of the story to see the end. That's what people really like. So I think it'll do absolutely well. And I'll be watching.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you.
I do have one more question for you, Jennifer. I know we weren't able to meet with Scott McCord with Newton County, Indiana, so that's kind of our local tie. But how big of his part was it in all this?
Oh, I mean, Scott's role was essential. His, unwillingness to give up on these very challenging cases is what, resulted in it being brought to us. It was actually one of a couple cases we worked on for him. So he just would not give up, and he was going to keep going as long as it took. He brought the case to us, and we worked collaboratively, and, that's how it was resolved. So without agencies taking those steps and seeking out this technique, identifications may not happen, but Scott refused to give up. And it was very neat to see how the family welcomed him and how important his effort was to them.
When will we know when there's a season 2?
When I don't know.
After we all watch it. After we all watch it. That's how we'll know.
Yeah, everybody watch it.
We will. All right, Jennifer.
Online buzz.
Absolutely. We're drumming it up right now. Jennifer, it's been an absolute pleasure meeting you.
Oh, thank you both so much. I appreciate your time and the opportunity to chat with you.
Best of luck.
Thank you so much.
We'll be watching.
Thanks.
Yeah, we will.
Yeah, very interesting. I think people just are so intrigued with true crime, period.
It is. And like I said, I think the local connection is really big because that just pulls you in even more. Okay, this is someone that comes somewhat from my area that maybe is connected to someone. I don't know.
Or if you've heard of it before,
yeah.
right? Because some of these stories have made the headlines before we've heard of them. So to be able to see how they piece together who's who, how they find the family, I think will definitely have us on the edge of our seats.
I think so too.
Like I'm on the edge of this seat. We'll be right back with more Chicago Now after this break.
It has more to do with how the district has done it, right? It has more to do with how the process has unfolded, right? How do we go from 17 years of experience to simply none? As an individual in this meeting has talked about, he recently just got his license to be an administrator January 27th of 2025.
If you look at the other two assistant principals hired for the other two junior highs in Orland Park, that being Jerling School and that being Orland Junior High, the individuals hired at those schools had more than 15 years of experience and advanced degrees.
Okay, so Tia, there's a lot of talk going on in the southwest suburbs. That's from Orland Park.
Yes.
You just heard some reaction from a board meeting last night from Century Junior High.
Yes.
So this school just hired a new assistant principal. The assistant principal, his name is Tremaine Harris. He's 26 years old. People are not happy with how young he is, how he doesn't have as much experience. And they're kind of fighting back with the school district to hire someone with a little bit more experience, someone that they're more happy with. Just hearing that, what's your reaction? I know you have something to say.
I got a
you
lot
look
to
like
say.
You do.
I actually want to see Tremaine Harris
I do too.
for several reasons. We'll get to that later. But let's start out with this. So in Orland Park, that is a south suburb. In case somebody's watching, they don't know that. They pay a lot of taxes. So they expect a lot out of the school district. Understandable. But here's where I stand. I'm a parent, okay? I'm a parent of a 2-year-old. I have a 5 or 6-year-old also that's in my household who's my bonus son. And we have 3 other children that are also within our household at times. Okay, all my bonus children, 4 actually more, that are my bonus children. As a parent, right, I don't feel like the 6-year-old, the 2-year-old, the 13-year-old, the 17-year-old it's from the generation I grew up. You can't go to a chalkboard and teach the 6-year-old like you would when I was growing up. So I do think, and my husband and I, we love to see younger teachers, younger administration. And in fact, the school that our 6-year-old is about to go to, when we toured it and they said this was the principal who also is young, we were like, thank goodness. Because that means that you're going to bring creativity. That means, and I'm not knocking the older teachers. I had a lot of older teachers that were my foundation growing up. They did a beautiful job. But in this era that we're in now, it's modern. You're using modern technology, techniques. Let's just face it, a 60-year-old teacher is not going to, or administrator is not going to infuse the educational environment like a 26-year-old would. I don't have a problem with it.
Okay.
And I paid high taxes too, and I don't have a problem with it. I think for the children of today, in a lot of cases, you need someone younger because their attention spans are like TikTok, and Instagram.
I think so too. I think you make some really good points. Of course, I don't have any children, nor do I have any children around me right now, but it is important. It's a new day and age. It's a new learning curriculum. You want to have someone fresh, maybe someone who, 26, yes, is young to be an administrator, but still, you want someone who maybe has just recently got out of school, who knows what's working and what hasn't worked in the new day and age. Yeah, so that's what I was going to bring up.
This is problematic though, and I didn't know this until I'm reading on our cue card. Parents are also fired up about an Insta post that quoted Beyonce with an expletive. Okay, so let's say this. As a professional, I don't care if you are the new assistant principal or if you are the reporter at Fox 32, you have a responsibility to be at least responsible online. If you can't be responsible online, then I do question if you're going to be a responsible assistant principal. So yeah, I am fired up about that, but I also question where this is coming. I'll give somebody one post where they made a mistake. Maybe he's learned from that, let's hope. But I want to know would this be upsetting if they found out Tremaine Harris was born and raised in Orland Park and went to all the Orland Park schools? Would that be different? Is he an outsider? Like what else aside from age and quote unquote lack of experience has people fired up?
Yeah,
like
we're missing some context.
And I would like to know.
Yeah, I think so too. I know that we covered it last night, and there's a lot of buzz going on fox32chicago.com. We have our story posted, so you can watch Casey Cronus's story. She went to the board meeting,
last night.
Talked to those folks who were, very fired up. She said that there was no one hiding really from the camera, not wanting to talk because they had words to say.
Yeah.
We haven't seen him.
The Instagram
I haven't
posts.
had a chance to look him up or anything like that. Of course, you can't judge a book by its cover.
Well, you can judge a book by its Instagram post.
You can, exactly. No, you make a really good point,
Yeah.
and I was trying to say that for you. I want to hear what you had to say first about, being young, them saying that he has a lack of experience, but, that plays a big part.
It does, but you know what, Gabby, sadly, we are living in a social media age where, when I was first coming into this business, for example, you would never be posted up on Instagram in a bikini. And now there are journalists who are very well known, who people feel are credible, that are posted up, in their swimsuit, literally. So,
all the time.
I mean, I don't know. Am I being old school? Do I need to change my way of thinking? Do the people in Orland Park? I don't know. I don't agree with the post that he made, but is that enough to tell somebody they're not worthy for a job?
That's true.
I don't know. I'd be cool with my kids having a 26-year-old assistant principal. And in fact, the principal of our kids' last school I want to say he was younger than 40. So that's young.
Yeah.
He did a great job. Great job.
And different people, even if they're young, you know, there's different personalities, there's different experience, even in their young adult life. All right, I have a feeling that we're going to continue to follow the story.
Tremaine Harris, call us. We want to interview.
Yeah, exactly. Let's get your input here. I think we're definitely going to be following this story with our newscast, so make sure you stay up to date and stay up to date with us here on Chicago Now. We'll be back tomorrow, won't we?
Yep, we'll see you then. Have a great rest of your day.
Have a good day.
Live from Chicago, this is Fox 32 News at Noon.
One of the greatest Cubs ever. Surely be missed. There's no replacing him.
Fans reacting to the death of Cubs Hall of Famer Ryne Sandberg, who died Monday after battling cancer.
Also, family demands answers after a deadly hit and run in Pilsen that they're now asking from the public.
Another steamy day across Chicago. We are about to get a break, though, when it comes to this humidity, but more wet weather is coming our way. Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. I'm Sylvia Perez.
And I'm Brian Jackson. The Chicago Cubs and the entire city of Chicago all mourning the loss of Hall of Famer Ryne Sandberg, who passed away last night.
The Cubs organization announced the sad news. Ryne Sandberg died of metastatic prostate cancer. He was 65 years old. His death has baseball fans all over the world sharing tributes to the legend who wore the number 23.
A memorial is now growing outside at Wrigley Field, where fans have been gathering to share some of their memories.
Joni Lum has been at the friendly confines near the Sandberg statue. A lot of people coming out to pay their respects, Joni.
Yes, it's a shrine to Ryne Sandberg here. It's really grown since this morning. It started with bouquets of flowers, and now there are beautiful flowers contributed by the Cubs organization. And Cubs fans have been weeping here at Wrigley Field. They truly loved Ryne Sandberg. They've been here at his statue on Gallagher Way, the natural place to show that emotion and share it with others who feel it too. Ryne Sandberg inspired the public through the way he played and fought. The marquee message at Wrigley Field is dedicated to Ryne "Rhino" Sandberg. Fans brought bouquets of flowers and signed baseballs to thank Sandberg for all he did for baseball and the Cubs. Sandberg turned the number 23 into a symbol of greatness, setting team records in home runs, stolen bases, and fielding. He won 9 Gold Gloves, was an all-star 10 times, but throughout remained humble and grateful. He shared his cancer journey with the public to help anyone going through challenge. He got to see the dedication of the statue of him alongside 4 history-making Cubs, and through it all, he displayed an elegance that fans won't forget.
23 has been a big number in the city for a long time, but there's a secondary reason for that. And I just feel like there's going to be so many people out here for the rest of the season, God willing, into the playoffs too, that I want to make sure to get out here and pay my respects before it got too crowded.
He was a pure baseball player. He was a pure human being. He respected the game so much. He never tarnished the game. He never tarnished his outside life. You never heard controversy around Sandberg. He represented Chicago Cubs. He represented himself as a father, a husband, a grandfather. And he's loved by so many in this neighborhood as one from being from here. And we have memories of him, and we have this beautiful statue here to remember him too.
The day he came to the studio, he posed for this, and he was wearing a jersey just like this. And working with him directly on this and getting to know him a bit, and his wife Margaret, it's really personal. You try and share your work with as many Cub fans as you can, because, well, you know how we all are, and you want them to have some part of it. So I was lucky I got to do that, and I will be forever grateful to Mr. Ricketts and the organization for trusting me to do this.
That's Lou Sella. He is the sculptor of this statue and a fan forever, of course. The fans say that Sandberg brought out the best in baseball. And those who knew Ryne Sandberg best, they've been talking to Lou Canellis, who has that story. Hi, Lou.
Hi, Joni. Yeah, we've heard from so many of Ryne Sandberg's former teammates and coaches who finally remember him as a dedicated player, man with a quiet intensity. Joining us now is a former Cub who grew up in Peoria, a fan of Ryne Sandberg's, then had the honor of playing alongside him. Joe Girardi joins us. And Joe, thanks so much for the time. When you heard the news of Ryne's passing, what memories crossed your mind?
Just like for me, I was a huge fan before I ever got a chance to play for him, because I grew up a huge Cubs fan, and in 1984, you think about the year that he had, and who hits 19 triples? I mean, he was so athletic, he was so graceful. And then the 4 years I got to play with him, from 1989 to 1992. I mean, this man averaged 30 homers and 91 RBIs as a second baseman, and that was unheard of. Plus like 25 stolen bases. So I got to see the best of Ryno, and he was such a great teammate. And what I remember about Ryno is that he never gave an at-bat away. He never gave a ground ball away. He never gave anything away. He always had that quiet intensity and expected so much from himself, and it wore off on the rest of his teammates.
Joe, you were born and grew up in Peoria, went to Northwestern, was drafted by the Cubs. When you first walked into the Cubs clubhouse and met Ryne Sandberg, and if I'm not mistaken, 1989 was it? But when you met Sandberg, yes, were you intimidated, or did he make you feel welcome in that clubhouse?
He made you feel welcome, but I think you were in awe. And anyone who knew Ryno was a prankster. So I think once he pulled a prank on you, you felt like you were part of the team. And he was so good at it. He was quiet, but he was like a guy that could pull off the best pranks, and no one expected it ever to be Ryno, because Ryno did everything, it seemed, correctly. But he had this little bit of this mischievous part of him that we all loved, and then we all started to figure out, oh, must be Ryno. Oh, Ryno got me. You know, he was so good at it. And he was intimidating person, but for me, being such a huge fan and knowing how good he was, I was in awe that I was actually on the same field as he was.
And your managerial career started with the Florida Marlins after the 2005 regular season. Ryno's first managerial job with the Cubs Class A Peoria team came in 2007. Did he ever ask you for any advice on how to be an effective manager?
No, and he didn't need to. He knew exactly what he was doing. He knew what it took every day to be successful. He was a five-tool player, and he had that quiet intensity about him. And like, if you didn't know him, you didn't necessarily know that, but he knew what it took to play every day, to be successful every day, and he just wore off on his players.
Yeah, terrific man. Joe, thank you so much for joining us during such a difficult time for former teammates like yourself, and especially for baseball fans around the world. Also a time we can celebrate the life of Ryne Sandberg.
When I saw that statue last year, I went and took a picture and stood next to it and sent it to my wife. That's how proud I was that I got a chance to play with such a great player.
I love hearing that. Joe, thanks so much for the time.
Thanks.
Joe Girardi joining us here. Joe works now for the Marquee Network covering the Cubs here in Chicago, and also for the Yes Network in New York covering the Yankees. Obviously, Joe was manager of the New York Yankees as well.
Incredible. I understand the Cubs will be having a tribute to Sandberg throughout the rest of the season. They're going to be wearing something special on their uniforms.
Yeah, they're going to be wearing a patch, a ceremonial patch.
And he leaves such a legacy, and it seems like when he made that initial announcement that he was sick, everybody was hopeful because he said the cancer was gone. Then it came back. It seemed to happen so fast.
Yeah, and he really ended up out of the public eye recently. Yeah. And he had a number of players, and actually Jed Hoyer last week spoke about Ryne before he met with the media and talked about the trade possibilities. So everyone kind of knew what was coming. But a time to celebrate his life. And, you know, there were so many great moments. June 23rd, 1984, a game I'll never forget, will forever go down in history as the Sandberg game. Cubs taking on the Cardinals, NBC's Game of the Week. Bob Costas, Sandberg hit 2 game-tying home runs in the 9th and 10th innings off a former Cub. And one of baseball's great closers, Bruce Sutter. Cubs won in 12-11, lifting Sandberg into stardom. How about Sandberg's 1984 breakout season? It was in many ways maybe his best ever, besides hitting a career-high .314 and reaching the 200-hit mark. The only time in his career he was able to achieve that. He topped the majors, and Joe referenced this, with 19 triples, 13 in the quaint Wrigley Field. It's almost an impossibility, Brian. Also scored a National League best 114 runs, hit just 19 home runs that season, but won the MVP award in a landslide. Sandberg, people need to remember this. He was truly a 5-tool player. Ryne won 9 straight National League Gold Gloves at second base, even set a then Major League record with 123 consecutive errorless games. Now, Sandberg said, and I love this quote, "Bring your glove every single day. You might go into some hitting slumps, but he wanted to make sure he played defense every day for the pitcher, for everyone on the field." It's the reason why Sandberg's statue outside of Wrigley Field, folks, has Ryne in a slight defensive crouch, awaiting the next pitch. He chose to be remembered for his glove instead of his bat. Let's go to 1990. Ryne smacked 40 home runs that season, became the first National League second baseman to win a home run title since the Cardinals' Roger Hornsby back in 1925. Yeah, Rogers Hornsby back in 1925. Sandberg also won the 1990 Home Run Derby title.
See that kind of power out of second baseman.
Oh, not back then. No one hit the long ball like Sandberg back then. And then in 2005, Ryne got the call to the Hall, joining baseball's greats. He also had his number 23 jersey retired at Wrigley Field on August 28th, became the 4th Cub to receive that honor on the 40th anniversary of the Sandberg game against the Cardinals, which we talked about. The Cubs unveiled the statue of Sandberg outside of Wrigley Field. He is the 6th person to have a statue built at Wrigley Field, along with Ernie Banks, Billy Williams, Ron Santo, Fergie Jenkins, and former announcer Harry Carey. And before I close with you guys, you know, as a kid, I grew up, I'm a little older, so I grew up watching Don Kessinger and Glenn Beckert play second base, and Billy Williams, Ernie Banks, Jack Brickhouse calling the games. I was 20 when Sandberg came onto the scene, and he was so good at the position, Brian, and you could appreciate this. A guy like Joe Morgan stole my conscience, but Sandberg was so good and so consistent. And what I love about Ryne Sandberg most is that he treated fans and the media with the respect that everyone deserves out there, even though he was the most valuable player on the field.
Yeah, says so much about his character.
For sure.
Yep, absolutely.
What a generous man.
All right.
Thanks, Lou.
Thanks so much, Lou. And our team coverage on the passing of Ryne will continue at 12:30.
Dane Placco will have more on Sandberg's life and legacy coming up.
Let's give you a live look outside right now. Time is now 12. Not dealing with the heat as much as yesterday, though, Mike.
Well, yeah, actually we kind of are, Brian. I'm sorry to contradict you there. It is going to be another hot day, but you know what? Today is the last 90-degree day on the way, at least for the foreseeable future. It's 89 at O'Hare. We've got 90 at Woodstock, Waukegan, the Lakefront, 91 at Midway, 93 already at Gary. I have actually taken my high temperature forecast, which was already kind of on the high side. I'm bringing it up to 95 for the afternoon. And one of the reasons for that is we got uninterrupted sunshine out there. Now, earlier there were some thunderstorms in Iowa. Those things have kind of fizzled. They're trying to hold together. There's a couple of showers out there, but that's not going to reach us here later this afternoon. I'm banking on no repeat performance of the isolated thunderstorms that hit the city yesterday. Let's go dry at least until tomorrow. We'll be right back with more of the new news after this.
Welcome back. We're learning more about a deadly fire that started overnight in Austin.
Chicago firefighters say it started at about 1 a.m. in an apartment building on South Kilpatrick. Police say 23 people were able to escape, but one man was taken to the hospital where he later died. The cause is now under investigation. Family and friends of Marcela Herrera are asking for justice after she was killed in a hit and run in Pilsen. Police say Herrera was walking with her fiancé near Ashland and Cullerton when they were hit by an SUV. The driver never stopped, and today loved ones gathered urging the public to help find the driver that killed her and seriously injured her fiancé.
This tragedy was completely preventable. We're not asking for empty words. We're demanding action. One, we urge Mayor Brandon Johnson to publicly acknowledge this tragedy, commit the necessary resources to move this investigation forward, and make it clear that Marcela's life mattered.
These are photos of the vehicle police say was involved in this incident. Investigators believe the SUV has front-end damage with a broken right headlight. Anyone with information is asked to contact police.
New at noon, a man wrongfully convicted as a teen is now suing after spending 29 years in prison. Jerry Harrington was just 16 years old when he was accused of a murder at Chicago's Dearborn Homes. He was exonerated earlier this year. Today, he and his lawyers announced a civil lawsuit calling for both justice and accountability.
He was beaten, assaulted, battered. At 16, how many of us would not give in to that pressure? Jerry never did. Courage, strength, resolve, even at the age of 16. But that didn't stop the detectives. Jerry may not have confessed, so what they did was they made up a confession.
I grew in that place to keep fighting. And I had people to come and join the fight and make it possible for me to be standing here exonerated. But even though I'm exonerated, I still got to fight and prove my innocence.
Harrington's attorneys say that his case highlights a larger pattern of misconduct here in Chicago.
New York City police and the FBI are continuing to investigate yesterday's deadly shooting at a Manhattan office building.
We're now learning more about a possible motive. Connor Hansen is at the scene with more.
Police are still searching for a motive after they say the gunman drove from Nevada to New York City before entering a Midtown Manhattan office building and opening fire Monday night. Pure evil. Police are still searching for a motive. They say a 27-year-old alleged gunman from Las Vegas went on a killing spree inside a Midtown Manhattan office building on Park Avenue Monday night. Several people are dead, including a New York City police officer.
He was protecting
New Yorkers.
Officials say the suspect exited a black BMW alone and armed with an M4 rifle. He then entered 345 Park Avenue, whose tenants include the NFL, Blackstone, and the real estate group Ryne Management, and began shooting people in the lobby before advancing to the elevators. Terrified workers inside blocking off entrances with couches as news spread.
He goes up to the 33rd floor, which is Ryne Management, firing rounds. He then proceeds down a hallway and shoots himself.
According to police, the suspect had a documented mental health history and had set off from Nevada to the Big Apple.
Through Colorado on July 26th, then Nebraska and Iowa on July 27th, and then in Columbia, New Jersey.
The suspect's vehicle was searched at the scene.
Officers found a rifle case with rounds and medication.
The police officer who was killed is survived by a pregnant wife and 2 young children. Police believe the suspect acted alone and that there's no more threat. In New York City, Connor Hansen, Fox News.
Well, Mike, in that last sauce, I was thinking today was Wednesday because that is when the cool down.
He's trying to end his work week sooner than later, huh?
Wishful thinking, I think, is what you're doing there. I get it. Well, starting tomorrow, it is going to be cooler, and then we'll really see that humidity come down later this week. So we're going to go in the next couple of days from stormy to spectacular. One more hot day that's out there right now. We have rounds of showers and storms, possibly something sneaking in maybe tonight, continuing until Thursday morning, and then a real break from the heat and humidity that is on the way, carrying us right on through all of Lollapalooza. Here are the current temperatures. Few spots already 90 plus. Midway, Gary, 91 and 93 respectively. At the lakefront, it's 90. No lakeside cooling, at least not yet. 88 at Joliet, Aurora, 89 at Woodstock, LaSalle, Peru. 85, a little bit cooler there for you, and it's 88 in Michigan City. Even look at Benton Harbor is 90 degrees. Now, the other number that we like to feature this time of year is the dew point. I'm going to show you that in a little bit. Look at the difference in temperatures, though. This morning, it was cooler than 24 hours ago. Now it's warmer. In fact, it's 6 degrees warmer at O'Hare than it was. And the dew point is still elevated. It is muggy out there. You get those 70-plus dew points. It really feels sticky. Few spots slightly less humid, especially close to the city. Here is the heat index right now. Feels like 99 at Gary, 94 at the lakefront, 97 at Waukegan and LaSalle. Those are some of the higher numbers. We'll get you to our Futurecast heat index, and we see later this afternoon could be some triple-digit heat indexes out there. But once we get to the evening hours, we're going to be done with the heat index for a while. Lots of sunshine out there right now, but there are some storms on the way. I'll tell you when in just a few.
Well, from a troubled childhood to the top of the culinary world.
Award-winning chef Curtis Duffy joining us live in our studio to share more about his journey to success and his new memoir, Fireproof. We'll be right back. Welcome back. It's 12:24. He is a James Beard award-winning Michelin-starred chef who's among an elite few that can say their restaurant earned 3 Michelin stars. Curtis Duffy is a superstar in the culinary world, creating beautiful and delicious meals that often look more like art than edible fare. But behind the beauty of his creation lies an unexpected story of unimaginable grief, tragedy, and not just surviving, I should say, but thriving. It's all in his latest memoir called Fireproof. And Curtis Duffy is joining us live in our studio now to tell us more about it. Welcome back. Good to see you.
Great to see you as well.
The last time we talked, we were talking about your restaurant, but today we're talking about this incredible book, which is mind-boggling and jaw-dropping. You called it Fireproof. Why Fireproof?
Well, I think, everything that we do, we go through the ashes. We try to rise up from, I guess, the ashes, if you will. And, everything in life has that meaning behind it. It is fireproof. And how do you come out the other side resilient and being fireproof is kind of the momentum of why we named it Fireproof.
In 2014, the For Grace documentary came out.
Yeah.
If you haven't seen it, that was about you opening this new restaurant, which you talk about in the book, that eventually earns 3 Michelin stars.
Yeah.
What you went through with that. And then it was at that time that you surprised, I understand, the people who were shooting the documentary by revealing that your father had murdered your mother. He was part of a murder-suicide.
Yeah.
But I'm wondering now, because that was really raw. I mean, you really put it out there. I think it even surprised you from what I've heard.
Yeah,
and now this book reveals even more. Tell me why you're doing this.
Yeah, like you said, the documentary was just a very skim-the-surface moment of just a flash in the pan of my life. And, I wanted to go in depth a little bit more of my past history, so much of my childhood and into my adult life, and where we came from after Grace, and that leads all into Ever and After and the Cocktail Lounge. And it was a place for me to put all of my demons on the shelf, so to speak, for once and for all, if you will.
I think a lot of people when they read this book, because I know I was saying to myself, and I've known Curtis for a few years now, and I see you as a very gentle, kind, caring human being. And when I read this book, I thought, how can this come from that? How are you able to fight those demons?
I think it is, it's a lot of discipline, just, having that mindset of getting through it, getting through to the other side. And, it's a lot of moments of hiding things and putting them under the rug, which I certainly did for the majority of my adulthood. It gets to a place where you get tired of fighting it. And I think allowing Jeremy to have my voice in this book and just get it out on paper for once and for all. It is kind of like that moment of very therapeutic, and it allows me to put it on the shelf. And if I want to go back to it, it's always there. But I think this gave me the opportunity to kind of just let it finally
Very
rest.
cathartic. You were able to put it out there. So you've worked with some great teachers. We're talking Charlie Trotter, Grant Achatz of Alinea. Your restaurant, Grace, as I said, earned 3 stars. You talk about the trials and tribulation of opening Grace and then losing Grace. Now you have created these 2 incredible places, Ever and After. People always wonder, what does it take to become a Michelin-starred chef? Not 1, not 2, but 3. Is it your background that has enabled you to withstand everything that took you to that point?
Yeah, it's 35 years of discipline, grinding every single day. That's what it takes. It's never an overnight success. It's surrounding yourself with incredible people, incredible team members that, do what they do every single day and have that same vision as I have had when I was a younger child.
And I love this. This is one of my favorite parts, was you were in high school, you were kind of forced to take home ec.
Yeah.
And you were sewing things and creating, and that's how you learned that you loved it.
That was the spark for me. It was Ruth Snyder really just honing in and seeing that I had something special, and just encouragement. It was having that one person in my life that just encouraged me to, maybe not go on to be a chef, but it was something that I was doing that, maybe I didn't know I was doing so well, and she pointed it out to me. And, I think at the end of the day, it was just that encouragement, that little nudge forward.
And you and Ruth are still friends to this day.
Absolutely.
So we've only touched the surface. The book is incredible. We want to make sure that if you want to hear more about Curtis's story, there are still a few tickets left for a launch on Monday night, which I am honored to be moderating. I'll be talking to Curtis about the book and everything else involved, and you can purchase those tickets at exploretalk.com. Curtis, thanks so much for coming in.
Thank you
Good
so
to see
much.
you. I look forward to talking to you again on Monday.
Yeah, great to see you.
Much more to come here on Fox 32 News at noon. Right now, let's head right back over to Mike.
It is sunny out there right now, and temperatures are on the way up. But this looks like the last 90-degree day, not for the year, but for the foreseeable future. What about thunderstorms? They're in the forecast, too. I'll share that with you coming up.
Training.
It is one of the biggest gatherings of sports fans in the entire country, and this year it comes with a dose of a heavy heart.
The National Sports Collectors Convention is now underway, and Dane Placco is live in Rosemont with a look at the event and how fans are remembering Hall of Famer Ryne Sandberg. Dane?
Yeah, we're here at the Rosemont Convention Center, which is absolutely packed with sports fans and sports collectibles as the show, the big national show, is starting tomorrow. But as you can imagine, hanging heavy over this event right now is the passing of Cubs legend Ryne Sandberg last evening. Well, let's take a live look at what's going on here. The scope of this is absolutely staggering. More than 600 vendors from all over the world here in Rosemont for the 45th National Sports Collectors Convention. They call this the Super Bowl of sports collecting, with millions of cards, thousands of collectibles like game-worn uniforms, baseball bats, football helmets, autographs, scorecards, programs, you name it, and it's here. Now, there will also be scores of professional athletes, both current and former, a number of Hall of Famers here over the next few days signing autographs for fans. And a short time ago, we talked to Jeffrey Rosenberg, whose company arranges those autograph signings. He had worked exclusively with Ryne Sandberg over the past couple decades and told us about what it was like to attend a signing session by the Cubs Hall of Famer.
Oh, I never thought the money meant anything to him when he did these. If it did, I didn't know it. It was all about the interaction with the fans. He, as much as anybody I've ever seen, absolutely loved people reminding him about his playing days. And I can't tell you how many people that came through and said their name is Ryne, R-Y-N-E, or they named their child Ryne, R-Y-N-E. I mean, that's the legacy that he leaves.
And how did he react to that when people would tell him something like that?
Just like I am now, smiling. Yeah, he loved it.
As a matter of fact, I was just talking to one of the baseball card dealers next to me here a short time ago, whose name is Ryan, R-Y-A-N. He said his dad wanted to name him after Ryne Sandberg, R-Y-N-E. His mom said, "No, we'll split the difference here." And he's Ryne. He's a lot of sad people here today, obviously. Also, a lot of Ryne Sandberg collectibles, a lot of baseball cards, game-worn jerseys, those sorts of things. So, if you are a Ryne Sandberg fan, this is certainly a place to go this weekend. The show opening to the public tomorrow, and it runs through Sunday. Live in Rosemont, Dane Placco, Fox 32 Chicago. Back to you.
I think we're all Ryne Sandberg fans.
I know. What a great guy. And I love that they're remembering him. Perfect place to talk about him and all the contributions he made. Thanks for that, Dane. Okay, let's find out what you can expect with the forecast, as it has been hot and humid, but there is relief inside. Mr. Kaplan, do tell.
Yes, this is going to be the last 90-degree day for a while. We're knocking on the door to 90 right now at O'Hare with an 89, but a few spots have already crossed that threshold. 91 at Midway, 90 at Woodstock and Waukegan. Gary, the hot spot, with a 93. Even in Benton Harbor, it is 90 degrees, and there is plenty of humidity out there as well. So the heat index, what it feels like to our body's ability to cool off, a lot of 90-somethings out there, and it's close to 100 at Gary. Of course, I'm always suspicious of the dew point reading at the Gary airport. I think it's always a little too high, but we're splitting hairs. I think we'll get that 100-degree heat index at some point here this afternoon. Lots of sunshine out there for us, but you see in Iowa, some decaying showers that looked pretty good a couple of hours ago. They're really losing their intensity, but a few clouds may sneak into our sky later this afternoon. We'll have to watch to see whether the leftovers from that system in Iowa might spark something here this evening. 95 degrees for the high. Yeah, I've taken my high temperature forecast up, and the humidity is there. The 7-day forecast, not as hot. 82 tomorrow, due to, in large part, scattered showers and thunderstorms. It is still going to be a humid day tomorrow, and there may be some peaks of sun in between rounds of thunderstorms, the last of which will be getting out of here Thursday morning. A high temperature of 80 degrees with lowering humidity all day. Lala getting underway late afternoon and at night should be just fine. And then look at Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Beautiful weather, high temperatures in the low 80s, plenty of sunshine. Turning a little bit warmer on Monday with a high temperature of 86, but we're doing away, at least for a while, with the heat and humidity. But, you know, we're only getting ready to enter August. We still have plenty of hot stuff on the way.
All right, thank you, Mike. More news to come here on Fox 32 News at Noon.
A big blue trailer turned sensory hub coming from Crown Point, Indiana, all the way to downtown Chicago just for us. Coming up, we're going to show you around and show you why it's making a difference.